So I'm Kevin. I am looking after the training side of things with the DIA. I've just recently joined the team just before Christmas. So I've got the job of hosting these webinar sessions and putting a nice program together for you over the year. So in our last publication, you will have seen some of those listed, so you'll know what to expect. But our next one, if I just mention at this stage, is Wednesday, the 19th of April, and that will be on supporting learner drivers with special educational needs. So that will be the theme of our next webinar. And so thank you for logging in. I hope you're going to get something of benefit from it today. Some of you, I'm sure, will already be familiar with the this scheme that Abigail is going to talk to us about. And we will post a few poll questions through the session as well. So look out for those, and that'll be another little way that we'll get your interaction. So that's me for the moment. I will pass you over to Abigail, if you'd like to tell everyone about your experience, Abigail, and what you're going to talk to us about today.
Of course. So morning, everyone. I'm Abigail Britten. My team is responsible for the Ready to Pass campaign. So we've been working kind of with industry to develop it, to getting feedback from learner drivers, but also working with parents, getting research with them as well. So I want to talk to you about the campaign, what we've got coming up, how it's kind of performing at the moment, and also I talk to you about how we could work with you to kind of help us promote it and get more of the messages across to learners, because we think that they're really important messages to get across, particularly at the time when waiting times are a lot higher than what we would like. Let's go into it.
Right.
Kevin, are you okay to get the slides up?
Sharing the slideshow. Yeah. So just bear with us, folks, while we click a few buttons here, and then you should get the presentation there. So you should be seeing Ready to Pass, helping your pupils prepare for their test and check if they're ready. So I'm trusting you can all see that. So that will be our format that we're going to be following together. Yeah, giving us a few thumbs up there. Thank you. That's all visible for you. Brilliant. So should I click on to the next one there, Abigail?
Yes, please, if you can.
Fantastic.
Right, so our main objectives for the campaign are helping learners understand what it means to be test ready and how they can check if they're ready as well. Learning about the cost of taking the test too soon, because we know that a lot of them are quite keen to kind of push to take their test too soon, and it might be that they're being encouraged by parents or friends or family to kind of take their test too soon. So it's about understanding the cost of what it means to take their test too soon, whether that's kind of the financial cost or whether it's the time cost, on how much longer it will take if they take a test before they're ready and then they fail. We also want to kind of educate them around making sure that they've got the right things to take to the test and make sure their test goes ahead. We know that quite a lot of learners, if, say, for example, they are pushing to take their test before they're ready and you've turned around and said to them, you're not ready, I don't want to take you, they're choosing to kind of go in their own cars. And then what we've seen is an increase in the number of tests that haven't gone ahead because people haven't got their provisional license, they haven't turned up in suitable vehicles, or they've turned up late to the test centre. So these are avoidable cancellations that we want to kind of help educate learners around, making sure that they don't lose these test appointments for kind of not bringing what they need and stuff like that as well. So I'll next slide, please, if you want to go on. I think we skipped an extra one there. I think.
Beg your pardon. I've got a heavy finger there. Right.
It's okay. What we're kind of using to kind of help learners and help your pupils pass their test is that we've got the resources in the Ready to Pass campaign. So there's the campaign website itself, and that's split into kind of 5 sections. The reason that we split it into 5 sections rather than it being the one page at the moment is because we want better analytics on we want to know and understand what learners find helpful and what will help them kind of practice, what's the information that they need. So the new areas that we've got kind of to the website is there's areas around the 27 skills that learners need to kind of practice to make sure that they're going to be a safe driver after they pass their test. There's a section on mock tests and there's a section on managing nerves and stuff like that. So that we've kind of split it into kind of all those different sections and the different resources that we think that actually learners need. And the evidence shows that, obviously, I'll go through that a bit with you later, but the evidence that we've got kind of supports that learners are finding this data and information useful, because around 90% of them, around 96% of them, are actually finding the content on the website useful and helping them to prepare for their test as well. So private practice in additional to like lessons with an ADI. So we found that those that have private practice in addition to lessons with ADIs have a are more likely to pass their test, and the same with like those that have a realistic mock test as well. And I'll talk to you about some of the research that we've got that supports that as well. We're recommending that learners take ways of practicing their nerves, and that could include practicing mindfulness, because we know that a lot of people say that the reason that they fail their test is because they struggled with nerves on the day. So it's about kind of gifting them the tools and techniques to kind of deal with those. Also, this has an added bonus as well, because if somebody's kind of nervous about driving, it might be that actually the tools and techniques that you teach them while you're teaching them how to drive might actually help them as well once they go on and actually pass their test, because if they can control their nerves later on with their driving, it will also help them like with just their driving career. So the other thing that we want to do is obviously that they can check and make sure that they're ready. So that's what we wanted to do with the checklist, to kind of pull together a list of items that we are recommending that actually they should have done ahead of taking their test, just to make sure that they're ready. And if they're not ready, we're trying to encourage them to push their test back as well, because obviously those that take their test, we know that the pass rate is around 50% or less than 50%. So over half of learners who take their test are then going and then having to retake it, which means it's taking them longer to get on the road if they're taking it too early as well. Next slide, please.
If I may just interject there as well, Abigail, that on this note of mindfulness, is perhaps an opportune time for us to give a quick plug for a course that we are going to be delivering with San Harper. Some of you may have heard of San. So she's going to be doing offering a mindfulness course in May, I think it is. So look out for that in our publications. And at the beginning of May, she's going to do a little webinar like this, just to talk to us a little bit about mindfulness. So that could be really helpful. I'll just launch one of our poll questions as well at this point, if I may. So folks, you'll see that coming to you. It's just a simple question: have you and or your pupils been using the ready to pass resources already? So it's just a yes or no answer. So here it comes. So something, a little bit of interaction there. If you want to do a yes or no there for us, and I'll move on to the next slide while you're doing that. There we go.
So I talked about the ready to pass resources. So we refreshed the website in February and added those new 5 sections. There's a new section as well for parents or family members who are supporting learner drivers. When we launched the campaign in July last year, we relaunched our Instagram account, and we've kind of made it bespoke for learner drivers, and we're putting a lot of the campaign messages out on that channel as well. And the reason that we're doing it in that channel and not always linking to the campaign site is that it's important to kind of get your messages across in channels that your audiences are already using, and so that's why we want to kind of get it in front of them when they're looking at Instagram as well. The other big thing that we found, like with the campaign as well, is that we're sending over, so far, I think, off the top of my head, we've sent over around 6.5 million emails to learner drivers. Wow. So those emails are kind of at the different stages of learning to drive. There's 6 different ones that are part of the practical test kind of messaging, and we kind of send them the messages to kind of encourage them to go and look at the resources and the content that is relevant to them at their certain time in the learning journey as well. And what we're seeing is the biggest number of referrals from the campaign to the campaign site are coming from those emails. So those emails are really working. They're bringing learners to the site, they're going and looking at the details, and then potentially, if, say, for example, they're not ready, some of them are then going off and going to the change of test kind of option or service as well. So it's having real value with the audience as well. Next slide, please.
We've got a result of that poll. So 62% of folks logged in have been using the resources. 38% haven't yet. So I hope that will, coming on today, will encourage you to do so. Here's our next slide.
Thank you. And that's really good news that a lot of you are using it as well. It's really good. So supporting your pupils with private practice. So as I mentioned earlier, pupils who have a combination of professional driving lessons and private practice are 1.5 times more likely to pass their test. We've produced guidance for people supervising pupils with private practice, and that's something that we did in October and November time last year. One of the reasons that we did this is because of feedback from instructors. We know that sometimes you're under pressure from parents or guardians of learner drivers to take people for their test before they're ready. They might think that they can go and take them out for private practice, and some of you may be concerned that parents are possibly teaching them bad habits and stuff like that, and they're not actually doing what they need to at the right time. So what we wanted to do is produce some guidance for parents or people who are going to take like learners out for supervising practice, just so that actually they know that you guys are the experts, that they need to come and talk to you, they need to come and say to you when they're planning on taking someone out. They possibly need to, what we would really like is for them to come and sit in on a lesson so that they can see kind of that you're teaching them and how you're teaching them, but not that they're going to be going off and teaching them, that it's just a case of that they are going to be sitting there and watching them for the independent drive, and that they're not teaching them bad habits. It's just so that obviously there's that kind of three-way kind of communication between you, the parent, and the learner driver as well, and everybody's kind of on board, and they can see kind of the progress that they need to make, and they can see kind of what they need to cover in those private practice sessions and how that can support and bolster the lessons as opposed to causing problems. So that was the reason behind what we've done. Obviously that guidance has got a usefulness rating really high on GovUK as well, so we're really pleased with that, but it'd be interesting to see whether any of you have kind of recommended the guidance or shared it with any of your pupils' parents, and whether you've kind of got them to sit in on lessons and stuff like that. So any kind of feedback on that would be really useful as well. Next slide, please. So mock tests as well. What we found with mock tests is, again, that there was 1 in 5 learners think that they failed. So as part of the customer satisfaction survey that is sent to learners with their test results email, we added some questions about the reasons why people failed their test, to get a view from learners on why they think they failed their test. A lot of them, 1 in 5, said that it was because they felt they were marked too harshly, and we think that that shows that that it's clear that realistic mock tests are really important, because if they can kind of understand how they're going to be marked by the examiner, and also have an understanding of what's going to be included in the real test, it will help them kind of understand what's going through the process and stuff like that as well. And one of the things that we've kind of been looking at and monitoring is the pass rates of those that have had a realistic mock test and the pass rates of those that haven't. And actually the pass rate of those that have is a lot higher. So again, we think that this is a really good kind of thing where we can work in partnership with you to kind of really increase the chance of a learner passing. And it's one of those things where if we can get more people having realistic mock tests, then hopefully pass rates will go up nationally, and then it will lead to kind of us helping to reduce the number of people waiting for a test as well. Sorry. Next slide, please. From the same kind of survey question that I just talked to you about, so the satisfaction survey that goes with the test results emails, we found that 1 in 10 people said they failed their driving test because they felt they were too nervous, which again showed us that actually this is an area where we need to offer help and support. And I know many of you already do offer help and support with helping pupils manage nerves, and I've heard of like cases where some instructors have kind of taken their pupils to a local test centre and they've met the test centre manager. And I know that also one of the other things that we've been doing is running the test centre open days, where that also gives pupils that are nervous kind of an opportunity to go and meet with the examiners at the test centre and familiarise themselves with the test centre and how kind of the testing will work and stuff like that. So that's one of the other things. We also mentioned kind of mindfulness techniques, but we know that obviously mindfulness is one of those things where you need to invest in it early, and it takes quite a long time to kind of put those techniques in place. And obviously you'll probably hear more about from San about that in the webinar that you guys are having in May. But we've been working with her as well, and some of the guidance that we've got on the campaign website is kind of incorporated guidance from Sam, and also we've had a guest blog post as well. So if you haven't read that, go and check that out, because it might give you a bit of a background on what we're kind of suggesting that could work. And obviously mindfulness isn't for everyone. Some people won't it won't work for them, so it's about what works best for the pupil. We've got some kind of really basic tips as well on managing nerves as well, so it might be that your pupil just finds those the right things for them as well. So I think it's about kind of having a conversation between you and your pupil, looking at what's on the site, but then going and doing the research into kind of the mindfulness as well. So that's that one. Thank you. Next slide, please. So in February, as I mentioned, we refreshed the campaign website. Since then, the website's had a record number of views. So it had 79,000 views just in February, or after, I think we launched it on the 7th. And then, so it's just these figures are from the 7th. 94% of people learning to drive used the campaign to prepare and rated it as useful. So that's fantastic news as well. 23.2% of learners who took the test said they used the Ready to Pass campaign's website to prepare, which is the highest so far. So again, this is fantastic. So that's the survey is going out to everybody who's passed their test. So it's around just short of a quarter. So 1 in 4 of learners are using it. But that shows that there's more work for us to do. We need to kind of get the messages out more in front of more learners and get more of them using the campaign site to help them prepare. 68.7% of people took the test and said that they took the mock test to prepare. So they're having realistic mock tests. So that's, again, it's the highest since the campaign started. So again, it's showing that the interventions that we've put out there are working, and that more people are having realistic mock tests, which will hopefully have an impact on the overall pass rate, as well as those that have actually picked up and done that intervention as well. Next slide, please.
Right. I'll just launch another little poll question there, if I may, which kind of links in with that one. If you or your pupils have used the resources that we've been talking about, just to get your feedback on how helpful you may have found them. So that one's winging its way to you while we carry on with the next slide.
I want to apologise as well. It looks like there's a couple of typos on that, but
all right.
just
spelling errors.
They just put me off a little bit when reading, so apologies.
Someone was asking actually about your Instagram page, so it looks like you're going to cover that here, so that's good.
So the hopefully a DVSA direct has either gone out or will be going out later today to let you know about this. But one of the things that we've kind of done, because we are so convinced that what we're doing is working and is having a positive impact on learners, what we've looked at doing is investing in paid for advertising. And the reason being is that obviously only, as I say, less than 1 in 5 are seeing the campaign site. So we need to do more to kind of push those messages in front of learner drivers. So one of the ways that we were looking to do that is getting kind of more messages in front of them in the channels that they're using if they're not kind of seeing it through us. So we're trialing paid for media adverts. We can't use TikTok, unfortunately, which obviously would be one of the areas that I'd love to use. And unfortunately, we can't use YouTube. And we know that through kind of the Ofsted research, not Ofcom, Ofcom, sorry, rather than Ofsted. We know through Ofcom that actually the main channels that our audience, so learners, are using are YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. So obviously one of the places where we are going to be pushing more of our messages is Instagram. We are looking to kind of develop and create more of our own content on YouTube because it is expensive to advertise on there. So what we wanted to do is trial kind of adverts on Instagram, on Facebook, Snapchat and Reddit. And these adverts are aimed at predominantly learner drivers, but we are going to be testing some messages for parents as well. And the other thing that we're doing, as well as like advertising on these social media platforms, there'll also be some digital advertising on websites. So and these are like websites where learner drivers and their families use them. So it'll be things like, I don't know, if people are kind of looking for learning materials, or if they're going to look at buying cars, or potentially looking for kind of insurance, potentially those adverts will appear in places where people are looking for information about learning to drive, or the process of kind of getting covered for insurance and stuff like that. So it's only going to be 3 weeks. So we're running it up until the end of March. And then we'll need to evaluate and review whether actually it's had an impact on increasing the frequency and the reach of the messages, but also increasing the amount that of increasing the pass rates and having the positive impacts that we want it to on like the pass rates as well, and also kind of on learner drivers' behaviour. So are more of them actually kind of having mock tests, or are more of them kind of using the checklist to, or the campaign site to actually help them prepare for the test, etc. So it's all around that as well. The other thing that we're looking at, like advertising on, is Snapchat and Reddit is mostly for parents. I don't know how this is all going to go, but I will be feeding back to you and the rest of the driving instructors to kind of explain how this has worked and talk about the next steps of the campaign as well.
Could you share with us, as one of our listeners has asked, Abigail, what the Instagram account name is for Ready to Pass?
It's just a DVSA one.
Oh, okay, just a DVSA Instagram account.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a bit disappointed to hear that we're not going to have any DVSA examiners doing a TikTok dance. No,
I know. I would have loved to have done stuff on TikTok, but we're not allowed, unfortunately. So it's just one of those things where what I do need to do and do need to cover is that I know that some instructors are already using TikTok. So what I need to do is make sure that actually the stuff that we're putting out is open and free, and that you guys can use it on the channels that you're using to communicate with your pupils. So it might be that some of our stuff ends up on TikTok anyway. And I know that Driving Test Success have done some stuff and filming with us as well. And they've done some stuff on TikTok. Yeah.
Someone was just asking that, Abigail, did you see that in the chat box there from James? Are we advertising on the Driving Test Success apps? So the answer is yes, by the sound of it, or you're doing something with them.
No, we are. We've been working with them, so that I think it's in there already, and they're looking to kind of update it to align with the new website as well. So we're working in partnership with Driving Test Success, and that's been really good. Like, we're also working in partnership with like Marmalade and obviously NASP and others. The more partnerships we have, the better. Obviously it helps us get our messages out in front of people as many times as possible, which is what we're looking for, really.
Brilliant. There's the results of the effectiveness of the resources. So that's looking good as well. Moving it on, is that right? Sorry.
Yes, please. As I mentioned, the ads will be kind of like going out. They'll be raising the awareness of the Ready to Pass campaign, raising awareness of like the having private practice in addition to professional lessons, taking mock tests with with the real elements of the test, and practicing ways to manage nerves and things to remember to take the driving tests, and how to supervise a learner driver. So that how to supervise a learner driver and the awareness of the Ready to Pass campaign are the only messages that we're really kind of focusing on for parents, because we think that they're quite important, particularly around the safety elements of pressure, like putting pressure on somebody taking their test before they're ready as well, and the cost of taking their test too soon. And obviously we're trying to encourage them to read the guidance if they're going to be supervising a learner driver as well. So again, that's the things that we're kind of encouraging, whereas with learners we're looking at them doing all of those things and encouraging all of them. So hopefully you'll all get to see some of those adverts. It all depends on kind of what you're looking for, because they'll be kind of like targeted at the right audience, because we're doing it as paid for. So you might get to see some of them if you're really busy looking at kind of driving test content on GovUK. But if not, it might be that your pupils see them and stuff like that. So any feedback on any of those ads would be fantastic. And I'll talk to you about how we'll be sharing those with you as well shortly. Next slide, please. So how you can support the campaign. So if you haven't, have a look at the new improved campaign website and give your ideas on things that are missing. So this isn't done, as I said, it's not finished. Waiting times are still a lot higher than what we would like, but even if waiting times were reduced, I still think that this campaign has kind of got a role. It might be that it moves from being around, this is all the things you need to do before taking your test, to these are all the things you need to do before booking your test. So what we want to know from you is, what else would be useful? What else could we produce as part of the campaign that kind of would support you and your pupils? So if you've got any ideas, then please let us know. As part of the campaign website, and you may not see this from like the top angle, but the campaign website is kind of like those top 5 sections that I mentioned, but at the bottom in the footer there's a section that's for driving instructors, and it will take you to a page that talks about the 10 ideas on how instructors can support the campaign, but it also gives the background and the insight and the evidence that we've built the campaign on, and how we can continue building it and tracking it as well. The other thing that we would encourage you to do, if you're not already, and I know many of you probably already do have your own driver's record or you use apps, but we'd like to start tracking pupils' progress against the 27 skills, and just familiarising them with the 27 skills that they need to be a safe driver once they pass the tests as well, so that they have some knowledge of those. Because one of the things that we found with like the research that we did is that learners were not taking any ownership of their learning to drive process. Many of them were kind of completely reliant on the instructors, and that's like fantastic in some ways, because it means that they trust you, but we want them to understand, and their parents to have an understanding of the skills that they need to be a safe driver, and it's not just all about passing the test. So there's some of the key messages that we want to get across to them as well. Next slide, please. Again, we think that there's a lot of big wins in the kind of supporting pupils with private practice. So we'd like you to proactively encourage and promote the benefits of private practice, as well as in addition to professional lessons. Encourage parents to observe a lesson, and get them to, like, the parents to read the new supervising learner driver guidance, because you're on the front line, you're meeting people, you're talking to them constantly, whereas we can put out the messages, but we're not always like connecting with the audiences, particularly parents. So if you can have those conversations with parents, I think that would be helpful and really useful in trying to get these messages across as well. We'd like you to encourage pupils to take mock tests. We'd like you as well, because again, as we've talked about, those that have actually had a mock tests, I think the difference is the pass rate of those that have had a mock test is a realistic mock test is 67% compared to those that haven't, which is around 47%. So it is quite a big difference in the pass rates for those that do and those that don't. So that's one of the reasons why we're really keen as mock tests as an intervention more so than any others, because that one is showing that actually if you adopt that, that is having a massive kind of impact as well. We'd like you to use our campaign resources on your websites or your social media channels to communicate. So that's like the ADI Communications Toolkit. We're looking to update that to include some of the paid for adverts that hopefully you'll see on the channels that I talked about. But we also want to create some bespoke ones for you as well, which talk about kind of, I use the checklist to help support my learners, or I encourage my pupils to have mock tests and stuff like that. We're just in the process of designing and creating those, but as soon as they're available, we will let you know, and obviously update the toolkit. So when they're available, please use them. And if there's anything else, again, any other kind of assets that you, or messages that you think that will be useful for you in your channels, please let us know and we can look at creating them as well. So next slide, please.
On that note, Abigail, I made a question there from Alison to say, do we have a one-page document that can be downloaded to print to give to learners and perhaps parents? Is there anything within that toolkit perhaps that could be printed off if that was an option rather than just electronically? But
we don't currently, but we could definitely look at that as well. We could definitely kind of look at that, like a kind of like a information sheet or something like that.
Yeah, or is there anything perhaps in that toolkit website that could be sort of copied and pasted and printed off maybe?
Yeah, I mean, most of those are kind of like social media stuff. Obviously there is the we've created some presentations similar to this for our driving instructors to give out or to kind of use at the test centre open days. So it might be that what we could do is create a similar kind of slide pack that gives an overview of the campaign, the resources and stuff like that, that we could give to driving instructors as part of that toolkit, so that they could have those conversations or just share the presentation with parents. Again, open to your feedback and suggestions on that, on what would work best, whether it's a printed out kind of fact sheet that you think would work better, or something a bit more interactive that you could sit through and go through with the parents. But welcome your feedback on that.
Brilliant. Good.
And then this is just kind of the get more information page. So we talked about Instagram earlier. As I mentioned, it's at dvsa.gov.uk. That's kind of our Instagram account. The Ready to Pass campaign website, if you've not gone and looked, go and have a look. And you can also sign up for alerts as well. So there's DVSA email alert sections, and you can get updates on the Ready to Pass campaign as well. So you can select that as your options when kind of choosing what options you want us to update you on as well. And there's an email address for the campaign team as well, that you can use if you've got any suggestions, or just get in touch with me as well. I'm happy either way. But if you get in touch with our team mailbox, we can look into things for you and start develop and create them as well.
Oops, sorry, I'm pushing the wrong button there.
And that's it from me. So
okay, I went backwards. Brilliant. So perhaps thank you for that, Abigail. Lots of great information there and stuff that you can look at to digest at a later date as well, perhaps. So I know some of you have been asking if some of these information is going to be sent out, but it's being recorded, the session. So that's a good way, I think, of reviewing the presentation, because obviously you can stop and start the recording on YouTube. And we've got a clapped hands there. Thank you for the clapped hands. So yeah, go to it may take a week or so before it's available to view, but it's the DIA Academy YouTube channel, and then you can replay the presentation. And just so you know, of course, comments and questions and reactions and things, they don't appear on the recording, so you'll get the slideshow again. with all the links. You'll be able to stop and start the video and copy the links down if you haven't done that already. So maybe we could just have a look at a couple of questions that I haven't answered there, Abigail. Let's have a little look while I try and go back to the one at the top there. So we've got a question here from Caldip. If the pupil is not ready for the test and there are no dates available for them to change, the only option is to cancel the test, which people are reluctant to do. Okay, so it's more of a comment than a question, that one, sorry.
I think with that one as well, like, we're adding tests all the time. I know it's hard, and I know that you guys are really struggling to get tests, and I know learners are as well in places, but we're adding them every week. But also, at the moment, LDTMs are testing 2 days a week. Those tests are added at a late, they're not added kind of. So normally with the booking window is open for 24 weeks. And so you'll get the next week of tests added on at a time. And then whatever is still kind of within the booking schedule as well is available. With like the LDTM ones, they'll be a bit closer. So just keep an eye out. I know it doesn't work for those that aren't ready, because obviously you're looking for later tests, but just keep looking and keep checking the system. And I know that's not a great answer, but it's just knowing that really that we are always adding stuff to the system, and it is a live system, so just keep checking.
Yeah, I know, I can feel the frustration on that. I know I don't teach learners anymore, but I know when I did, this was before the pandemic, but where there were some places 6 or 7 or 8 weeks waiting, I would just be sitting at home sometimes in front of the telly and just keep refreshing the page and hoping that a cancellation comes up or something. So I used to do that sometimes. I know it's not ideal, but difficult. Yeah, we've answered the question about the Instagram account. There was a question here from Ali. It is always difficult time to tell candidates that they are not ready for the test due to financial and other trust issues, coupled with the current long waiting times to get a test date. And this can worsen the relationship between the ADI and the candidates. Can the DVSA introduce a kind of system where candidates are signed off by a second ADI or an online/video system that can check candidates' test standard prior to the actual test being taken? So that can a DVSA introduce a kind of system where candidates are signed off by a second ADI?
I think anything like that would require legislative changes. And I think that's one of the things that we would need to kind of refer to my colleagues within the policy team. They'd need to probably consult and look at that, because obviously a lot of the test is already set out in legislation. So that whilst it's kind of a good idea, there are things around that where it would be quite a time-consuming thing to look at. But that's not to say that we can't look at it. It's not to say that we can't investigate it. It just, I wouldn't be able to give you an answer on it, I'm afraid.
Yeah. No, it's perhaps not directly answering that question, but perhaps linking in with mock tests. I'm sure some of our listeners do this already, but I know it can work quite well if you've got relationship with other ADIs in your area, and you can perhaps ask one of your colleagues to do a mock test. Sometimes that's on your behalf. That sometimes is good to get a second opinion on where your pupil's at, whereas you're teaching them all the time. You can do your own mock test, of course, that's still good, but sometimes that's a good thing. I'm sure some of you do that, get another local ADI to do a mock test for you. And that can obviously be reciprocated, building up relationships with the local instructors with you. Just one more here, and Nicholas just made a good suggestion there. Can we mention the RTP links that instructors can embed onto their websites? That is that part of in the toolkit, Abigail? Do you know?
Yeah, or I can just add them there. So the links to the website, you can just embed those now. But I can get those sent out as well as a follow-up. It's just they're ready to pass the URL.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then they can add that into their own web pages. Super.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I'm just scrolling down if we've got any other. There's just one more at the bottom here. Another Kevin, I think. restriction of own cars taking actual official tests is a hope rather than an expectation, but it may solve some issues, giving an ADI the ability to assess the standard. Yeah.
It's, I think, again, that probably would need policy and a legislative change, and it's difficult because some people already have a driving license because they have a driving license from another country, and we would hope that they would have a few lessons with an instructor before taking the test in this country. But we do know that some people choose to go in their own vehicle as well. So I think from a kind of equality and access point of view, we may have problems kind of restricting, but again, that would be something that they would need to look into from a policy point of view and do a proper impact assessment on that, if that was something that we chose to look at.
Yeah. Okay. And a good bit of feedback there from Tina. A really useful presentation. Thank you. So that's covered all the little comments and questions there. One thing I would just wanted to mention to everybody, obviously to thank you for logging in there. I am just mindful that there was a couple of other poll questions, wasn't there? So let's do that next. That you sent over, Abigail, was a couple that I did there, but and it was on the subject of mock tests. Yes, so the question's coming over to you folks. In the last 3 months, have you seen an increase in the amount of pupils requesting a mock test? So is that something perhaps that you encourage, or have you seen pupils asking proactively? So people are just voting on that while we're speaking there. So just to reiterate again, DIA Academy is the YouTube channel. There's a DIA YouTube channel and there's a DIA Academy YouTube channel. So it's the DIA Academy one where you'll be able to get a recording of this in a week to 10 days or so's time. All right. There's quite an even split there on the vote between the yes and the no, the proactively asking for mock tests. So just sharing that one. And then there was one final poll question here coming up. Just clicking another few buttons there. And your last question on parents. In the last 3 months, have you seen an increase in pupils' parents getting in touch about how they can work with you to support their learner? So that question's coming over to you as well, ladies and gents. Have a little vote on that one if you would like to. Anything else you'd like to add, Abigail, in terms of how you'd like our members perhaps to help with the promoting the scheme, just amongst their own pupils, spreading the word, I guess is the...
Yeah, like I say, if you can get them to go and look at the campaign website, if you can go and look at the toolkit on the campaign website and kind of add the assets to your social media channels or websites themselves, that would be amazing. And the more we can spread the word about the messages in the campaign, the better it will be for all of us. And I truly believe that. Yes,
yeah, it's a good resource and structure, isn't it, to help both the pupils and parents and instructors. So that last poll there was only 10% have been approached by parents. So maybe there's a job for us to do. I'm sure many of you do already. Instructors are proactive in trying to communicate with the parents. I know it's not always easy, but perhaps on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard with the parents really, because it's with instructors and with like the learner drivers, we've got ways of contacting you, or we've got direct contacts, and we can use like GovUK Notify, or we can use DVSA Direct. With parents, they're a kind of a secondary audience, and we're very much reliant on the learners sharing the information, or driving instructors sharing the information with the parents. We are working with partners as well, and I'm really keen to kind of work with some parent charities and get some of our messages across through them as well, when they're like doing safety stuff, but also with the insurance industry, such as like Marmalade. So if a parent is going to go and get a learner driver insured on a car, so that they can take them out of private practice, they're at the point of decision making. It's really crucial that we get our messages with them, in front of them at that point. So again, if you are having conversations with parents and they are talking to you about, oh, I'm thinking about going and getting some L plates and getting them insured on my car. If you can push them in front of the guidance and share that link with them, that would be amazing, because the parent audience is one we're really struggling with at the moment, and it's one that we can't do on our own. We are going to have to work with partners on.
Yeah, and we know the statistics as well, of course, don't we, that we can engage with the parents and encourage that private practice alongside the professional instruction as well, then that's best all round, isn't it? So I was talking to an instructor not too many weeks ago, actually. He was saying that it was really difficult for him to contact parents because this particular young lad that he was training wasn't in a sort of an open communicative relationship with the parents, so they weren't actively involved. So I know the situation like that can be difficult, but good.
Yeah, I mean, we've tried to use language. Sorry, Kevin. I was going to say we've tried to use language. It doesn't necessarily need to be a parent or a family member. It can be a friend. It's just what we want is somebody that's kind of like a mentor or a sponsor that is supporting the learner driver. And I know in some cases that might be hard because not everybody's going to have access to a car to kind of do the private practice. But where we can support them and get them to do that additional private practice, I think that it's showing real benefits, and we should be kind of encouraging it more as well.
Fantastic. All right, we're doing really well with our timings there. So if there are no other questions coming through, and Abigail, you've delivered that beautifully, thank you. We will start to wrap that up, ladies and gents. So thank you for logging in. As I say, do look out for our future ones. Next one, to remind you again, Wednesday the 19th of April, but there'll be more reminders that come out through our email account and other places that we advertise. Do like the YouTube or subscribe to our YouTube channels, and then as soon as this gets uploaded, then you'll get a notification. Fantastic. I think there's just one more message that's come through. Oh, just thank yous coming through. Really useful presentation. Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. We'll call that a wrap. I'll just unshare the presentation there. Bless you. Drive safe. Have a good day.
Bye.